do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they stay there. Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in,
welcome everyone to the TSPN produced Dan Tirico and David Rome show. This is David Rome. We got Dan Tirico here again. How are we doing today, Dan?
Oh, doing good, doing good. Got a lot to talk about.
Lots to talk about in the TFL. That is always good to have. And let's break right into this. We're going to talk about Week 6 results, who won the advantage for the TFL Super Bowl 4 this year, our lock results, someone's still undefeated. Week 7 games of the week. We have some powerful matchups going on, and then, of course, our locks. So let's get right into this. What do you say?
Let's go.
All right, Week 6 results. We had interconference battles going on. Any of these games stand out to you this week or last week?
Well, I mean, the fact that both of us did go 2-0 as far as our picks, that's really nice. Somebody that I know is undefeated. As far as games last week, we had a lot of close matchups. Anybody in particular you're alluding to?
No, I'm just seeing if there's anything out there. I'm actually a little shocked with some of the winners, some of the losers. I lost. Big Orange Army lost. I think our whole division actually lost.
Dispensing the pain lost.
Loose Ends won.
Yeah.
But overall, the AFC pulled out a 7-5 victory overall to win the advantage for the Super Bowl TFL Super Bowl 4. And some of the games that we were looking at last week where we never really had a good chance to break those down. We do apologize for that. We had some
technical difficulties.
That's what I was trying to think of. Technical difficulties were we had Murphy's Law versus Big Orange Army, and then Dispensing the Pain versus Big South Bandits. And that's what we were going to go over. I mean, those were the games of the week that we were trying to really break into. Anything out of those games, Dan?
No, not offhand.
Besides that, both AFC teams lost in those games.
Yeah, let's we can just
I mean, real quick, Big South Bandits. I don't know. I'm hoping you bought the steak dinner. I don't know if maybe you tipped off Joe Flacco or if maybe you were partying in Tampa. But I mean, Joe Flacco basically single-handedly.
Yeah, 40-some points, and I almost overcame it. If I'd have played against, there were only really, I think, 3 or 4 teams that outscored me that week. So if I'd played against, about anybody else except for a handful, I would have been fine. But yeah, Flacco, he just, he wore me out.
I'm trying to see here.
Lynch, Lynch was held. He was held back quite a bit. He had a pretty bad showing, so that hurt me a lot.
That I agree with. You had Matt Forte with 32 points. Can't be mad with that. Matt Ryan had a pretty poor performance, which is the 10 points. So I mean, it's just one of those weeks where, I mean, in 5 minutes, when the quarterback you're facing has scored 40 points in 5 minutes of a game, you're like, well, this sucks.
Yeah, you're in for a long night.
Exactly. Let's see, we did have some close games. We had Old School, barely beaten, outkicked my coverage with 3 points. We have, let's see, these other closer games. That was a blowout. That might have been the other close game.
Havoc Hawks, Flying Bombers. I mean, that was, 5 points separation between those two.
Okay, there we go.
Pretty close. Outkicked my coverage in Old School. We had roughly 3 points separating those two.
Let's see. We had Rampant Lions. They won pretty single-handedly. Big South we talked about. Butt Monkeys destroyed Monsters of the Midway. destroyed them. 152-98. Let's see. He had Colin Kaepernick 35 points, T.Y. Hilton 32 points, Demaryius Thomas 23 points. Oof, that is. His running back scored 10 points, but everybody else scored him 100.
So, who was your locks in week 6?
Oh, for week six locks. Well, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was very nice to still be able to get that victory. I had Every Damn Wrestling, who was able to take care of business for me. It was very, every now and then when you can get Will to follow directions and beat a team that you tell him to beat, it works out pretty well. He had, Russell Wilson only's got him 7 points, which would have thought would have been bad, but he's got J.J. Watt on his team.
Yeah, what made the difference on that?
When you have a defensive player constantly scoring double-digit points, and in this case, 26 points, it's almost like if you lose that game, then there's a huge problem. Because if you look at the winning margin, it was J.J. Watt. If he scored any other normal point total, he probably would have lost. And then we had the game that was scary was Outkick My Coverage and Old School. I had Old School in that one, and Old School was able to pull it off on the, at the very end. I was a little afraid with the Monday night game. I think they had some defensive players each going, and I was afraid that the defense could outscore the other defense. But Old School was able to pull off that victory for me, so it was pretty nice.
Yeah, he had 17 points from his kicker, too. That always helps.
Oh, of course it does.
I had Pill Pushers beating the Mudfish. That one was pretty close. Pill Pushers are now 4-2. Mudfish is 3-3. Also had Rampant Lines, so it's funny as far as that division. You had Every Damn Wrestling. I had Rampant Lines. That division is showing, they're pretty tough again this year. But Rampant Lines, 134.44 to 94 over Beachbums. I mean, 0-6. They're still they've not won. So I hope they manage to at least squeak one out this year.
Yeah, it was exactly there. I mean, we both go 2-0. I'm still undefeated, which is completely ridiculous. First off, Let me just state that. I have no idea how that's even possible still. It's just I know I'm not picking the high scoring favorites either. It's just the way it's worked out for me, so that's kind of nice. I mean, you were able to get yourself 2 victories. You're getting closer to 500, so that's always a bonus.
Exactly. And the thing is, I've tried to pick a lot of the ones that I would thought were sure and high scoring, and not always worked out so well.
No, sometimes it just doesn't do that. It's just the way I guess this crazy game of football works, fantasy-wise. You know what I mean?
Football. All right. Well, hey, let's go on to week 7.
Week 7.
Yeah. Do you want to start AFC, NFC?
Let's say the AFC. That's a pretty good matchup there. I want to be able to pick a brain of the owner on that one. So let's start with the NFC first. We have Monsters of the Midway, who are cruising along in their division.
Yeah. Going
up against JC Beachbums, who are cruising along to not showing up in their division.
Well, we're looking at a 4-2 team versus an 0-6 team. But we never know. Would you like to start with breaking it down?
Well, at first, do you have a statement from the owner of the Monsters of the Midway?
Okay.
Let me go ahead and pull up his statement we've got for him. Here we go. Monsters of the Midway. Quote, "You play every week to win. It just so happens that this week we have an opportunity to strengthen our vice grip on the division. By strengthen, it basically means winning the division title in week 7, by the way. Because I'm pretty sure if he wins it, there's no one catching him. Throw the records out the window. We're focused and ready too." So they're trying not to look past the 0-6 JC Beachbums. I don't think I would either, but when you're so far ahead in the division and you're going up against a team that has yet to win, you gotta feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. But that's only half the battle. I mean, so you lock it up, you make it, you still got to win. I think he's going to have some tough competition.
Oh, I completely agree with you. When I was debating locks, I was thinking to myself, should I lock this upset of the year? In my opinion, but I'm looking at it. Let's break this sucker down here. Do you have anything special on the breakdown?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just start and go for it. Let me start with Monsters of the Midway.
All
Um,
right.
I'm gonna start. I'm not sure who's lineup, who's doing what. I mean, we can go off of what they currently have, but let's start with quarterback Jay Cutler. Cutler finally found the touch on his deep ball in week 6. He went 5 for 7, 191 yards on passes, at least 15 yards downfield. The Dolphins, they have they've been fairly respectable versus opposing fantasy arms this season. They've allowed the 14th fewest points per game, and at the same time, Cutler has a lot. He's got multiple weapons. Matt Ryan's averaged 21.6 fantasy points at home this season, compared to just 14 on the road. Baltimore has allowed the 7 fewest fantasy points to visiting quarterbacks this season. Ryan remains, he's still a starter. He's got a high volume passing game. He's second in passing attempts. He's got plenty of targets, and but I'm expecting modest results. Going up against Baltimore. We've got looking at running backs. This is kind of where I think his hurts are at. Hulu, I'm not really going to say much about him. Rodgers, he does have Alfred Morris. The Titans have surrendered the 13th most points on the road this season. That sets them up for, he's basically going to be their early down workhorse. Right now, Alfred's on pace for around a little over 1,100 yards, 8 scores. I think he's going to have a strong home showing. Looking at wide receivers. This is Monster's bread and butter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Julio Jones. He's leading the league in targets. He's first in receptions among wideouts. He could just feast on a Ravens secondary. Right now, they're allowing the 6th most fantasy points per game to opposing receivers this season. Jordy Nelson. Jordy Nelson is the league's leading receiver. He's on pace for close to that's 1,700 yards, against the Panthers secondary. Right now, that secondary is allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game. Start them and sit back and enjoy. Torrey Smith, he's got a couple of touchdown grabs last week. I think he's got 3 in his last 3 games. But, he has yet to really post a day with more than 4 catches or 50-plus yards. So, Atlanta's 29th ranked in the pass defense. That gives him a good chance this week. But, he's not really shown much for me. Reggie Wayne's been a little bit of a surprise for me this season. He's, I thought he was kind of losing his step. But, the Bengals have allowed just 3 touchdown passes to wide receivers. Andrew Luck's got 17 passing scores. Only 4 of them belong to his wideouts. So, Wayne's not finding the end zone. Bengals, pretty stingy defense. Not really an ideal matchup for him. Let's go to the tight ends. Kobe Fleener, again, going against the Bengals defense, but whereas they're stingy with wide receivers, the Bengals have really given up a lot to tight ends. I think they've given up 274 yards and 3 scores. And 3 scores in the last 2. So, if he's not scoring, he doesn't have a whole lot of fantasy value. But Fleener just has like 150 yards in 6 games. So, so. Andrew Quarles, he caught the game-winning touchdown last week. But now he's going against the Panthers defense, allowing the 7 fewest fantasy points to that position. So they're really stingy with their tight ends. He's not been targeted very much. He's a gamble. It's either boom or bust with him. Looking at the Beachbums. All right, he's got the Payton brothers. We've got Eli. Now, Eli's going against the Cowboys. Cowboys are limiting their opposing passing games so far to 228 yards. That's the 12th fewest in the league.
The Cowboys defense has been unbelievable night and day compared to last year's. But I think the stat I heard was that they're almost on pace for the exact same defensive season. They're just not giving up the points now. to go along with the actual yardage and everything that they're giving up.
Well, but you also got to realize too, they've met with what I would consider low volume passing attacks. I mean, Seattle, Houston, San Francisco. A lot of them are, they run the ball, they pound it. I mean, they're capable of throwing and little quick throws and stuff, but they're not what I would consider high, purely high volume pass attack. Mm-hmm. So I think that influences the stats a little bit. Dallas is ball dominant on their agenda right now. They're trying to hold onto the ball more. Either way, Dallas, the fifth fewest fantasy points to opposing arms so far. So there's Giants, the run game's pretty much non-existent. So there's a good chance, Eli's going to be asked to pretty much carry the offense on this one. So risky play. I mean, that division, Giants, Cowboys, I know, a lot of times they play each other pretty hard. Cowboys, they just or the Giants, they got blew out by Philly. They're going to come back, and Eli usually does good whenever he's away. I think he plays better at Dallas Stadium than Romo has in past. So I don't know. That one's a gamble. Peyton, man, where's it going to stop? He's thrown multiple touchdown passes in 11 straight regular season games. I think it's totaled 36 touchdowns during the streak so far. It's going to be tough to extend it. They're going to be tough to run against the 49ers defense. They've allowed the second fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. So, as far as run, it's going to be tough for him to continue that streak against the 49ers. So we'll see. Looking at Beachbums, looking at his running backs, Andre Ellington. Raiders are allowing the third most rushing yards per game. Ellington, he's on pace right now for about 1,600 yards total. He's good at receiving. He's good at rushing. He had 25 touches last week. So he's kind of serving more. He's following his return from injury. We'll see. Ellington, he's kind of the workhorse right now. They kind of said that in the off season. That's what they were going to do with him. So I think you'll have good numbers in week 7. Frank Gore, right now, Gore has been surprising to me this year. He's, I think like 14th ranked in fantasy backs right now. He's on pace for his 8,000-yard, campaign in 9 seasons. Broncos have a, kind of middle of the road versus the run. So, we'll see how that goes. Andre Johnson, last week, he hit at least 70 yards in 4 of 6 contests this season. So, I mean, that's, there's a lot of potential there. He's kind of top dog in Houston's passing game. I think he's a future Hall of Famer. Mediocre Pittsburgh secondary. He should put good numbers up in week 7.
Yeah, he got his first touchdown last week. Believe that or not, Andre Johnson finally hit the touchdown. Got his very first touchdown last week.
Yeah,
which is crazy to think about. Him and Larry Fitzgerald both finally got the end zone. Week 6 of the NFL season. That's insane.
Bolden, so far he's got 53 receptions. He's been targeted 69 times. He's around 600 yards. He's kind of middle of the road. Broncos secondary, they're allowing the third fewest fantasy points to receivers this season. He pretty low side for me. I don't, he'll put decent numbers, but not nothing to write home about. James Jones, Cardinals have been really good against the run. They've been unable to slow down wide receivers. They're giving up close to 28 points per game. That's the second most in the NFL. If you own James Jones, Derek Carr is red hot right now. He's definitely play him and sit back and enjoy. Cruz, he's got Cruz. Cruz is out, so. But he's got depth in wide receiver, so he should be good. Now Beachbums, they're really hurting tight end. Jordan Reed's back, possibly. He is. Kirk Cousins, he likes to target Reed. We'll see. He's got I, this is going to be an interesting matchup. I know you kind of said that possible upset, and I could kind of see it going that way actually.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those matchups where everything would have to just fall perfectly in line for the Beach Bums to pull off the victory. Um, it's, I mean, like I said in the beginning, you look at it, you're like, you could see it possibly happening, but I think that injury to Cruz could definitely hurt them. Andre Johnson he finally hit the end zone last week. Was that just a fluke? Or is it all of a sudden, hey, Houston's quarterback, Fitzpatrick, realizes, wait a second, I should be throwing him the freaking ball.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Peyton Manning, I see him, I think he just needs 3 touchdowns to break the record of Brett Favre, if I recall correctly. I see him at least tying that record, most likely. So, it's hard to stop Peyton in Denver. So, it's just one of those, it could easily be done, but, Monsters of the Midway, as you said, their wide receiving core is ridiculous, and those three, Torrey Smith, Jordy Nelson, Julio Jones, all 3 easily can just drop 20 points on you, and you're screwed.
Yeah, and as far as, it's going to be kind of with, he's got the advantage in wide receivers. Quarterback, he's got Cutler and Ryan. It's 50-50. One of those two is going to put up good numbers. I don't see both of them doing poor. It's just you luck of the draw, pick the right one. I could see you getting upset, but I'd have to give this one to Monsters of the Midway.
Yeah, I could definitely see Monsters of the Midway taking this one. Let's see. The other match, the AFC matchup. Let's look at this. We have Dispensing the Pain facing off against the Rampant Lions in a intra-division, monster battle, in my opinion, because, the winner of this one, I think, has the best chance of taking over the division and seeing themselves in the playoffs with the division title. You got Rampant Lions 4-2 against Dispensing the Pain 3-3, and I just want to state, in the beginning of the season, I said Rampant Lions Super Bowl champions, returning back to the Super Bowl. Look at them at 4-2. That's all I gotta say. Look at them. They are definitely getting right where they need to go.
And I also think I said, and I think I was called crazy for this, but I think I said that whole division would end up going back to the playoffs as well.
Yeah, it's accurate. I think you said that.
Yeah,
it's looking close.
Yeah, all 3 teams are putting up good numbers. Just some interesting stuff as far as the series between Dispensing the Pain and Rampant Lions. We've got it's 2-1-1. So Rampant Lions is 1-2, Dispensing the Pain's 1-1, and then we've got 1 tie. However, looking at the past 6 weeks, if these 2 teams were to play each other each week for the past 6 weeks, it would still come out. It would 3 wins for Dispensing the Pain, 3 wins for Rampant Lions. So I think there's.
So what you're saying is you guys are pretty evenly matched. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah. It just kind of depends on the week. Rampant Lions have been a little more consistent as far as their putting up around the 140, 150 mark. Dispensing the Pain, they're a little more over the board. They've got 2 weeks they put up over 180 points. Then the other, but they got 2 weeks they put around in the 110, 117 range. So. Any given Sunday.
Yeah, definitely Dispensing the Pain has the outscoring ability with looks like a total of 853 points compared to Rampant Lions 800 points. But sometimes that scoring the most doesn't really matter if you're blowing out somebody, and then the next week you can't even score, exactly. 120 to win. But let's take a look at this little matchup here. You've talked about Matt Ryan already. You got Matt Forte, running back for Dispensing the Pain. Easily can drop points down on you. Marshawn Lynch definitely didn't have the game of a normalness from last year. Dallas was able to just completely shut down Seattle altogether. His point total from last week, I can't expect that to be again this week. You got Julius Thomas. He'll be the one probably catching all those touchdowns from Peyton Manning this week. So that's pretty nice to have right there.
Yeah. We already touched on Ryan. Forte, I mean, he's currently leading the league. He has 46 receptions. He's on pace for, that's like 120 some over a full season. That's a lot. Miami, they've kind of been middle of the road against the run, so I think it's going to set Forte up for a pretty good showing. Lynch has the most touchdowns among skilled position players since the start of 2012 season. The Rams are allowing 4.5 yards per carry. That's the ninth most in the league, and around 140 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. That's the seventh most in the NFL. So I think Lynch is going to bounce back. I think he's going to have a big game. I think he's going to put up some big numbers and then have some skittles. As far as the receivers, Jordy Nelson, we talked about him. I mean, he's leading the league's leading receiver. He's putting up big numbers. I think he's got a pretty good matchup. Golden Tate. We got Stafford thrown to him. Calvin Johnson's out, so that's going to increase Tate's value a little bit more. I think he's going to see some stuff, some bigger numbers. Welker, he didn't show up last Sunday, so he's kind of non-existent. Julius Thomas, like you said, he is he's on a record-setting pace for touchdowns. He's wearing it out. So I think he's. But on top of that, I was reading a stat said he's hauled in all but one of his targets in every game this season. So he's really got some good hands on him. And then you got Antonio Gates. He may not get a ton of yards, but at the same time, he's got 6 touchdown grabs over the past 5 games, facing Kansas City, who has allowed 4 tight end touchdowns in the past 5 games. So there's a good chance Antonio Gates is going to get in the red zone a little bit.
Oh, when you got Phillip Rivers throwing to you, you'll be in the red zone, definitely, no doubt about that.
Yeah, Rampant lines. I mean, hey, we got Cutler. Kind of discussed him. Cutler's got a lot of weapons. He's got a good matchup. Breeze. He's home.
He has not had the best of years right now. He definitely is. Yeah. Below his scoring ability, going up against Detroit's. I mean, I'm pretty sure Detroit's a very secretive 4-2 record, if I recall. You wouldn't have really thought that they're 4-2, and then you wouldn't think that they're number 1 in passing and number 2 in rushing. That's crazy to think about, that their defense has been that good, stifling the opposition. I mean, you look at what they've given up to quarterbacks. Eli Manning, 6 points. Cam Newton, 17 points. Aaron Rodgers, 10 points. Then they've been facing some not great quarterbacks. Geno Smith, 7. Kyle Orton, 14. Teddy Bridgewater, a -6. So, I mean, they've only given up 49 points to the quarterbacks. But we're talking Drew Brees. And New Orleans pretty pissed, and they have to win. So it could easily be one of those games where Drew Brees just drops the hammer on him.
Possibly, but at the same time, we got Jimmy Graham's out. I mean, that's his go-to guy. He's out. Marquise Colston has pretty much been non-existent. Actually, hey, it's worth a gamble. I think Jeff should start Brees over Cutler. Definitely. That's the coach Dan talking, not the Tirico review. But looking at his running backs, I mean, Giovanni Bernard. I mean, the Colts are giving up a lot of yards. Around 5 yards a carry. Atlanta's allowed more than. Let me see. I'm sorry, I've got my stuff. Allowed more than 7 rushing scores to Indy. Bernard. I think he's going to have. I think he's going to have a big game. He's turned 31 carries into around 200 yards. So he's getting the ball. He's putting on the yards after he gets the ball. Bush, there's a chance that Reggie Bush may come back by week 7. Just have to kind of keep an eye on that. Foster. Foster has he's easily good. He's topped 100 yards in each of the 4 games he's played. He's 3rd in rushing yardage, 2nd in ground scores. The Steelers' defense was hammered by Cleveland for 160 yards.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it's going to slow Foster down too much. I think he's going to do good. Pierre Thomas, again, stingy lines, defense. Thomas is unworthy of a start in my book.
Oh, no, he's definitely. I mean, you look at. I mean, right away, Foster, Giovanni Bernard. I don't think there's no. I mean, you're definitely not going to start Reggie Bush. I think even though he is, possible to be playing this game or that next game that Detroit has, I can't see starting him. He's not scoring enough points to even be worthy, in my opinion.
I think you should try it. I think that would be a good gamble on Jeff's part. Wide receivers, I mean, Julio Jones. He's leading the league in targets. He's first in receptions among wideouts. I mean, Ravens secondary, again, giving up 6th fantasy points per game to wide receivers. He should have a big day. Hester, you definitely can't sit him. Vincent Jackson, you never know.
Well, the Bucks are on a bye this week, so Vincent Jackson's not even going to be even a decision for this.
I think you should start him.
Well, let's see. Atlanta, they're facing Baltimore, 27th ranked against passing. So I mean, they are giving up. They're giving up points to definitely wide receivers, and the only thing when you look at Devin Hester, sure, I mean he's getting points. I'd like to see a better breakdown of what is being considered his return yardage points compared to actual receiving yardage. Because I think that's where the real money maker is for Hester. I mean, if the Ravens get him the ball at any point in time, I mean, those are points that you just can't ever predict are going to happen. That could easily happen.
Look at his tight ends. Martellus Bennett, not Alshon Jeffrey, not Brandon Marshall, but Bennett is 2nd on the team in targets behind Matt Forte. Miami's allowed the 14th most fantasy points per game to tight ends, so definitely a big matchup for him. He also had a midseason pickup on Larry Donnell. I mean, Cowboys, they've been pretty stingy, but at the same time, they've gave up 6 touchdowns to opposing tight ends. That's I think it's like the 3rd most in the league. So Donnell's had 4 touchdowns this season. He's tied for 4th among tight ends. I could see him putting up good numbers as well. But again, that's against the Cowboys, you never know. I mean, it's going to be kind of a gamble on that one.
Yeah, I look at both of these teams, and you look at the defenses, and I mean, the defenses really aren't the money makers for either one of these teams. From how I look at it, it's definitely both teams are definitely offensive powerhouses. The defense is, thank you for giving me some extra points. But, I mean, this is definitely going to be whoever has the better offense probably is going to be the one that wins this game.
Yeah, and seeing, just if I was playing it purely by statistics, I know the Rampant Lions won the last matchup. Flip a coin, I'd probably give it to Dispensing the Pain this go around.
And speaking of going with the Dispensing the Pain, let's go ahead and let's take off that Dan Tirico headset real quick. Let's get into the man, Dan, who owns Dispensing the Pain. Let's get into really what I'm really interested in, and tell me how's your team going to fare against the Rampant Lions here?
Well, we've got a couple things going for us. As much as I hate it, and I hope we change it next year, we do have home field advantage. So that's going to give us a few points. Last time we met, we also had Lynch was out. He was on a bye, so we've got him back this go around. So that's one of our big weapons. I don't know. I feel like we're going to have some people show up. Jordy Nelson for the most part has been really consistent this season. He's typically put up good numbers. Julius Thomas has been very consistent on putting up good numbers. I think the rest of our guys are going. I think we're kind of, I don't know. I just gut feeling. I think Dispensing the Pain is going to walk away with it. Now, granted, I would not be surprised to see Rampant Lions take it. Both of them are good teams. Jeff has been very fun to play against this season. he's really good on the waiver wires. He plays good He plays the matchups very well. He's not definitely not a rookie by no means. He's two-time Super Bowl champion. So the fact that I feel like I'm kind of running lockstep with him, and either or, I feel pretty honored about that. Especially this is only my just my third year in this league, so I think I've figured it out, come a long way, in in a fairly short amount of time, and I've got confidence in my players. I think we'll do well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at your guys', just standings alone. If you were to get the victory, you would tie overall record, but then you take the lead in the division, which we all know that's really the key statistic to look at in the very beginning to get your division title as your division record here. So you'll definitely take the lead there. It's I look at the two of your teams, and you guys are in a monster division first off, and talk about a black and blue division, and then you even got a Will in there with Every Day I'm Wrestling, who's surprisingly 0-2 in your division, but yet has a 4-2 record.
Correct.
So, it's one of those things where you guys are just battling it out, and it should be a very good match.
Yep, I agree. We'll sit back, grab some popcorn, and see what happens.
Oh yeah, it should be one heck of a matchup. And after we've broken down these matches, I think we have some very good, interesting matchups here. But the matchups I'm even more interested in now is the locks.
Okay.
And, I'll let you start with your locks first because, we'll save the best for last.
Well, yeah, you definitely have been the best for last, or best, go around. 10-0, that's impressive. We'll see if you can continue your streak. Looking at it, I'd like to take a look at Havoc Hawks versus Lucians.
Okay.
I just think Havoc Hawks has a lot better lineup this go round. We'll see what happens. He's got Andrew Luck, he's got Murray playing, Kelvin Benjamin. Man, what rookie has made that big of an impact on a team so far? As far as rookies and whatnot, Kelvin Benjamin. You have Terrence Williams. I really like him. And then for the Giants, what's his face? Drawing a blank. But anyways, the Giants, rookie. All three of them guys are just really fun to watch. And they're putting on a Percy Harvin. I mean, they're really fast. They're very quick. Good hands. Havoc Hawks though, I think he's got the. I don't know. Lucians, he's got Foles going this week. Deshaun Jackson's finally starting. He's doing good. Brandon Marshall, Steve Smith. I think that both of them look fairly well matched on paper, but I'm going with Havoc Hawks.
Yeah, I was definitely looking at this matchup originally just to, do I like this as a matchup to go with a lock? You got the 4-2 Havoc Hawks against 3-3 Loose Ends. Loose Ends are in my same division, so kind of don't want to see them to win. But it's not a divisional game, so at the same time, go ahead and win. They do have Nick Foles on the bye, so they are going to be starting most likely Alex Smith.
Yep.
He's coming off a bye, which may not be too bad for him. But, it's Alex Smith. He's not a big, point but upper. He's going up against the Chargers, who are number 4 in passing. So, sure, Derek Carr lit them up last week. Don't get me wrong. But Alex Smith isn't a Derek Carr. He's not flashy. He's not going to put up 4 or 5 touchdowns. He's more to keep the game managed. And, he'll get a touchdown here or there, but I don't see him getting 4 touchdowns against the Chargers.
Yeah. Well, as far as, Andrew Luck, if I had to pick my top quarterback play this week, it'd be Andrew Luck. If I had to pick my top running back play this week, it would be DeMarco Murray. Benjamin is probably in my top 15 wide receivers. I just think it's Hawks is. I just think he's got it.
Yeah, no, it's a very good pick in my opinion.
My other pick, I'm going back to what I know, going back to home. I'm looking at Every Day I'm Wrestling versus Outkick My Coverage.
All right.
If you want to pull them up every day, I'm wrestling. Yeah, he's at the bottom of the division because the whole division win thing. He's 0-2. Just make sure we reiterate that. But he does have a 4-2 record. We're looking at Outkick My Coverage. They're a 4-2 team. So I mean, we've got two good teams. I'm trying not to. I'm trying a different approach this go around. I'm trying to find some that I think are fairly close. I'm going to the David Rome school of picks.
There you go.
Yes. Russell Wilson. Man, he looked awful. But I still think he's a professional. He's going to bounce back this week. Tom Brady, without Kick My Coverage, Tom kind of bounced back, put up some good numbers last week. But as far as, neither one of them really have what I would, I think Spiller has pretty good matchup, versus the Vikings. Neither one of the running backs are really what I would consider, huge standout. But the wide receiving core for every day I'm wrestling, I mean, Antonio Brown, Percy Harvin, and then on top of it, look at defense. Who's he got? J.J. Watt. You might as well give him an extra slot position for a wide receiver or tight end. Watt he's just been that consistent with it. So, home field advantage. I'm going with every day I'm wrestling on this one.
Yeah, you're looking at it, and it's real quick with J.J. Watt. 13.5 points, 7.6 points, 12 points, 19.5 points, 4 points, then 26.5. Now he's going up against the Steelers, and I'm pretty sure it's a primetime game. So I believe that's a Monday night game. So if it's one of those games where he needs 10 or 15 points and he still has J.J. Watt to go, I'd almost still feel confident I'm going to win that game because it's a J.J. Watt. Yeah. And he could easily get an interception returning for a touchdown, fumble returning for a touchdown, line up on the offensive side, catch it for a touchdown. So it's definitely, I could easily see the victory there as well with every day I'm wrestling. You look at Outkick My Coverage, he's got Tom Brady, who is a man possessed right now after that awful showing against those Chiefs. So awful that he's been putting up normal Tom Brady numbers. You got Sean Moreno, who is no longer going to be playing. He's out for the season. So running back wise, he hurts really bad there. Tight ends, I'm such a fan of Greg Olsen.
Greg Olsen he's had a good year so far.
He's definitely he's a man's man, and he's a great football player. He comes in, does his work, gets his touches, handles business. But I mean, overall, every day I'm wrestling. I think that they're just going to be too much. So I agree with both those picks.
Well, good. If I got your vote of confidence, then that makes me feel better. So, Mr. Rome, what have you?
Let's see here. And for my AFC pick, I looked at the 3-3 Butt Monkeys versus the 3-3 Skin Bots. And you look at the matchup, and you got Colin Kaepernick as quarterback. You got Eddie Lacy, who has been very, very disappointing in my opinion so far this season with Green Bay. He's definitely due for a breakout week. Could this be it? Who knows? You got Alfred Morris steadily putting up numbers. T.Y. Hilton, Demaryius Thomas. I mean, point getters right off the bat with those two wide receivers. Skinbots, you got Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's doing a good enough job in Washington. I would definitely, even with RG3 to come back, I would keep Cousins in there. But running back, you got Ahmad Bradshaw and Steven Jackson. They're not putting up any points. Wide receiver wise, you got Cordell Patterson and Eddie Royal. I mean, Patterson's just having a bad season just because they're just not getting enough. I don't think they're just not getting a steady in the quarterback. With AP hurt, or not hurt, but he's busy beating on other stuff. I think that actually has screwed up Minnesota pretty bad. So, as I'm looking at this matchup, I'm going Butt Monkeys on this one.
Yeah, I can see that. And as far as you reference to Lacy, I mean, they're doing that running back by committee. He's not seeing a whole lot of touches. But again, it's going against Carolina. Carolina is giving up a lot of points to running back. So, we'll see what he does with it. Yeah, I mean, I could kind of see that one going either way, but I'd have to agree with you on that one. Who's your next pick?
The next pick, we're going into my NFC pick. I always like to make sure I get one AFC and one NFC team. So the NFC team of choice is the team that was able to take care of me last week, Terrible Towels. I have them defeating the Maynardville Mudfish. You have both are 3-3. You have the Terrible Towels with Andrew Luck. We all know what he can do. Marshawn Lynch definitely is going to be bouncing back from last week. I mean, going up against St. Louis Rams D. We know they looked good on paper, but paper isn't telling the whole story there. And then you got Le'Veon Bell, who, after last week, Cleveland just embarrassed Pittsburgh. Now Pittsburgh's going in prime time against the Houston defense. That could be a scary matchup as well, but, Dez Bryant, Alshon Jeffrey, Martellus Bennett, monster scores in the passing game. Defense-wise, you got Jason Pierre-Paul. Love the guy, USF alum. He does everything you can for the Giants defense. Alec Ogletree, handling stuff. He's probably one of the only one doing anything for the St. Louis defense. And then you got Dominic Sue. I mean, just up and down. He definitely has a nice steady roster to be able to take care of the business. Other side, you got the Mudfish, Colin Kaepernick. I feel he hasn't been as last week he was able to pull out, they came back, they were looking not too good in the beginning of the game, but then, of course, he comes out and scores 35, gets 35 points for his team. But, it's just, I don't like, you got CJ Spiller. Never really been a big fan of him. I feel he doesn't get enough, just doesn't do enough still for the name he's got. Jimmy Graham, he's going to be out, so those aren't points to be really looking for. Jarvis Landry for Miami, once again, I can't really, he hasn't been that big of a scorer in my opinion for Miami. So it's just the way the matchup is looking. I almost think his defense might be able to outscore his offense. So definitely Terrible Towels on this one, going up defeating the Mudfish.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Big names and Spiller. Yeah, I agree. Not a huge fan. He does have Percy Harvin though. I'm big on Percy Harvin. Jimmy Graham. He's pretty sure he's not playing, so Mudfish is going to have to do something with that as well. We'll see how deep is he in tight end. Maybe I should have phrased that a little different, but yeah. And also, my apologies. I have been trying to pick one AFC, one NFC. I didn't catch myself on that when I was making my picks. I was just trying to look for good matchups, and I dropped the ball on that one. So I'll make up for it next week and do 2 NFC picks.
There you go. He's got Eric Ebron as his other tight end on the roster, so he hasn't been scoring a lot of points either. So that might be a waiver wire pickup. Maybe what he has to do on that.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, those are my picks. If I go 12, if I go another 2-0 and I hit 12-0, I don't know. How, it's pretty crazy to even think that, but it's out there. So if those are the picks, those are the locks. We will see what happens.
Picks, locks, reviews. Sounds like a wrap to me.
Sounds like a wrap to me. So we are going to get out of here on this episode of the TFL. Just want to do a reminder here real quick that the polls are out for the TFL that Commissioner Goodell has put out there. So don't forget to answer those. And let me see if there's anything else I need to find here. Yeah, I think that's everything that he had said. Yeah, get your polls answered. It's mid-season already, which is crazy to think about. But other than that, I think that's it for us.
Alrighty. Well, I guess we'll see you next week.
All right, TFL, we'll see you next week. Y'all have a good one. See ya.
No matter what, got money on my mind, I can never and they stay there.